Good evening. It is February 23rd, 2023. This is the Needham Conservation Commission public hearing. My name is Janet Bernardo, Conservation Commission Chair. I'd like to confirm that all members and staff are present and can hear me. Allison.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
Stephen's not here, I don't think. Okay. Sue.
Here.
Dave.
Here.
Paulina. I saw you a minute ago. You're on mute, maybe? Paulina? He was here a second. Oh, you're off mute. I don't hear you though.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Thanks. I can see you. I can see you. Okay, and Deb
Here.
and Clay.
Here.
Great. Okay, so this is an open meeting of the Town of Needham Conservation Commission being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. And just for everybody's information, come April, we will be back in person 3 years later. All supporting materials have been provided to members of this board and are available on the Conservation Commission website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, please permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each hearing on the agenda. I will introduce the applicant and or their consultant to begin their project presentation. After they conclude their presentation, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment or questions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you, and please state your name before speaking. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Great. Okay, first thing on our agenda is 37 Mosley Avenue, DP file number 234896. It is my understanding that the applicant has requested an extension, continuation, because we just received the materials.
Exactly. Yep.
So we need a motion to continue 37 Mosley Avenue to March 9th, 2023 at 7:00 p.m.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor, Dave,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Allison,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Paulina,
Aye.
and aye. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Continued. Next hearing is 380 Dedham Avenue, DP file number 234897. This is a notice of intent for a baseball diamond, I believe. Who is here? Ed Olson? Are you here? Yes.
Yes,
Ed Olson, and who else is with you?
thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. I am here tonight with our engineering team. We have Tom Ryder, our town engineer, as well as Justin Saviano, our assistant town engineer. We're also joined by Stacy Mulroy, our director of Park and Recreation, as well as some members of the DPW team, and lastly, Bradley Mosquito, the vice president of Ty and Bond. I can't see the screen with everybody, but I do believe everybody should be in attendance.
I think I see most of the people you just mentioned,
Great,
plus some others.
fantastic.
Okay, so who would you like to do? Are you doing the presentation or is somebody else?
Well, if I could, I'd like to do the introduction, a little history of the project, and then I could tap into any member of the team. Maybe each and every member might like to say a couple things, and then maybe lastly, Bradley can go through the plan set.
Sure.
So
You
that
have the
said,
floor.
okay, thank you. So everybody, I'm Edward Olson, Superintendent of Parks and Forestry. Thank you for your time tonight. As mentioned, the town of Needham has filed an NOI for the McLeod Field project. Last year, town meeting appropriated CPC funds for design funding for this field. And if we were to go back at that presentation, we did exactly as we told town meeting. We were going to host a series of meetings with Park and Rec, the town manager, select board, user groups, and come up with design ideas for a field renovation. As many of you know, this field has been troubled historically since 2010, since it was built in the Field of Dreams project, with some drainage issues with the 48-inch drain line that runs through that field. But that, however, was not the driver of this project. There had been desires to make this a softball field. And after a series of public meetings, we heard loud and clear that there was a wellspring, a groundswell of support for that. And it made sense. DeFazio, as mentioned, was gifted to the town by the Sports Council approximately 13 years ago. In that Field of Dreams project, essentially all the fields minus Asa Small were renovated. So as we stand presently, there are 3 baseball fields at DeFazio, 2 90-foot baseball fields, 1 60-foot baseball field, 2 multi-purpose grass fields, and then, of course, 2 multi-purpose synthetic turf fields. I think we heard loud and clear over the course of the past year, and we knew this already, that the girls' softball program was in dire need of better field conditions, field accoutrements, especially the girls' varsity and JV fields. That's even more telling now, since we found out that potentially we may have some issues at Claxton. I think we'll soon tell through the recent geoprobing and the testing of the soils there what the future of that field will hold. But I'll be honest with you, it's kind of troubling to think we might potentially lose those fields, and the girls depend upon those fields. So I think, again, pivoting with this vision in mind was extremely valuable and timely. This field project, if permitted and continues to move successfully forward, is part of the town manager's recommended capital budget that will go to town meeting this spring. So again, back to the field project. Currently, McLeod Field's a 90-foot baseball field. We'd be looking to convert, renovate this field, completely strip out the field, and basically convert it into a softball field. What does that mean? Well, we spoke about the why. The why is the need for the girls. The where is at DeFazio. We want DeFazio to be that action activity hub for the high school. Right now, the boys are there, the track's there, the spring sports are all there, and it makes sense. It's supported through the athletic director in the school department. So the how is we'd basically strip out the soils, we'd change out the irrigation, we'd fix that drain, we'd stop putting the field back together. When we heard from the user groups, we knew that Claxton was limited regardless of what the soils came up with. So some of the things we heard are the girls wanted dugouts, they wanted warm-up areas, they wanted lights, they wanted a scoreboard. And of course, what we knew we had to do, which wasn't done during the Field of Dreams project, is we had to make some accessibility features there. We don't have any accessibility walkways or tie-ins as we stand today. And you'll see that in the design that we'll share with you tonight. So that's kind of the why, the where, and the how. And the reason why we're here before the commission is, of course, we do have an edge of the field that is within the boundaries of the 100-foot buffer zone. And we can speak to that through some questions later from the commission. With that said, I'd offer to maybe have our director of Park and Rec if she'd like to say something, and then maybe our town engineer. And then lastly, like I said before, we'd like to have Bradley share with you the plans tonight.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy Mulwer, the Director of Park and Recreation. Thanks, Ed, for the recap. I just want to talk about the equity of our fields as Park and Rec and Parks and Forestry starts to look at all our facilities. We also want to look at it through an equity lens. And one of the glaring things that came out is we have a lot of baseball fields and not a lot of softball fields. And a lot of our baseball fields, including our Little League fields, have dugouts and accoutrements that our softball fields do not. So in addition, the youth softball program is growing exponentially, and we have adult programs as well that use our fields. Claxton, both of Claxton fields right now are the only varsity size fields. And, I agree with Ed, moving the varsity team over to McLeod makes a huge difference equity wise and helps our high school athletes. They deserve a premier field. The boys have it, the girls don't. And this was an opportunity to sort of right that. And in addition, access, inclusion, all of our ADA can go into this project as well. So I just wanted to mention that. And as Park and Rec, like I said, looks at all of our facilities, playgrounds, we are looking through an equity lens all over town. So thank you.
Thank you. And Tom Ryder, did you want to also say something?
Tom Ryder, I have nothing more to add to this, so I'll let you listen to Brad regarding the project. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Brad, if you want to state your name and company for the record, and are you going to bring up plans to share?
I will, yes, sure.
That'd be
So-
great.
I'm Brad Mosquito from Time Bond, and let me share my screen so we can get right to it.
Thanks.
Everybody all set seeing that?
Yes.
Perfect. So existing field, you all know where we're at. The parking lot sits over here. These are the two synthetic fields. You can see the corner of the track up here. But here's McLeod is what we're talking about. And more importantly, here's your jurisdictional wetland down here. You can see the buffers that we've laid out as well. The existing infield sits where you see these under drains here. And as Ed had pointed out, up in this location, you can see there's an existing drain line that comes all the way around the DeFazio synthetic fields, but then, you know, kind of cuts across the outfield of the existing baseball field and discharges through a head wall to the wetland system. Pay attention to how close your existing baseball field is. You can see the backstop is tucked right in down close to your wetlands here. So if I kind of look to see what we're trying to do here, we've pulled the entire field away from the wetland system. Being that we're going to a 60-foot diamond versus a 90-foot diamond, that allowed us, obviously with a little bit smaller field, we were able to pull away, create more of a buffer between the field itself and the wetland. You can see that we're proposing fencing. So this will be a fenced-in system for the whole entire field, which you don't have for the baseball field now. So this will be a nice upgrade. The backstop, where it was way down here, we've pulled it way up here. So the backstop is almost, I guess it is entirely out of your buffers. On either side, we're proposing 2 covered dugouts. And then these 2 areas on either side would be a synthetic turf pitching lane for pitchers to warm up during a game. Other things that we're showing out here, you see a little bit of a sidewalk here, which would bring us access and ADA compliance is what Ed was kind of alluding to. We're providing 2 pads for some portable bleachers. So you would be able to come in and have an accessible route to get onto the bleacher area via that new sidewalk. In addition, we've also shown another sidewalk up top here, which, you know, is predominantly, except for this one little corner here, is outside of all your jurisdiction, but just to figure out what we're doing, you know, that's providing to an existing bleacher system that's up on the back side here. Again, just providing a sidewalk. This is the existing lacrosse wall that's already out there. The proposal there is to take out some of the stone dust and, you know, area on either side of the wall and replace that with a synthetic surface. So it, you know, holds up a little better and certainly would, you know, keep some of that dirt out of the area. And then lastly, we have this area, which is a batting tunnel that they would use, that's out in the outfield there, that they would use for warm-ups and practice as well. Another synthetic surface. We are proposing, or at least hope to be proposing, field lighting for these park. It would, you know, we've got 4 poles, one here, one back here, and one back here. And so that'd be similar, you know, not quite as similar, but, you know, it'd be, you know, the lighting you have out here for the synthetic fields, it wouldn't be too far off of that, you know, certainly not as tall as those, but, you know, same type of system. Some of the things that were interesting as I go to a grading plan, you can see this whole drain line is the one that Ed's been having trouble with over the years, with, breaks in the pipe, having settlement and creating sinkholes out there in the middle of the field. We're proposing, since we're gonna be doing all this work for the field anyway, is going back and replacing that line. You will see as if I can zoom in here. As we get down close to the end, here's your head wall. We are dropping dropping a new manhole over the existing line. That way we don't have to touch the existing pipe that's within your buffer. So we are picking it up there and we'll replace everything new as we get farther away. Other things, you can see all these under drain lines. The infield mix would be underlain with a perforated under drain system that provides better playability of the field, during heavy rain events. We can actually drain it and hopefully get you out there quicker. The synthetic turf has an under drain system that would tie back to the drainage system, not unlike what you already have out here. You can see actually on the plan, all the under drain you already have underneath your synthetics is very similar. Other than that, we are pitching the ball field. One thing that we saw with your existing field that we wanted to change is currently everything slopes from the synthetic fields and just, kind of sheet drains all the way towards the wetland. Obviously not great for your wetland, but two, not great for the infield either, because we're pushing all that water right towards the infield. So we're going to regrade as we do this, basically creating a high point out here in center field, pitching it towards either foul line and kind of shooting it around with swales over, around the baseball field. So hopefully that'll give us a little bit drier surface, a little bit better drainage and playability for the kids out there, and provide hopefully a state-of-the-art, top-notch field for the town. That's kind of the work that's being done. I don't know how much you want me to get into details of this. I mean, it's construction type details. You care, or do you want to stop there?
Well, maybe we'll ask some questions, but if you could
Okay.
leave that up,
Sure.
that would be helpful. I'll have commission members first. I'll just go through them. Dave, you have any questions at this stage?
Yeah, I got a couple questions relating to drainage.
Good.
A couple things may not be necessarily relevant to the wetlands issue, but
That's okay.
I'm just curious, like the 48-inch drain, that's a pretty big drain.
It is.
I mean, did you think about making it smaller?
It's existing.
It's existing.
I know, but you're taking it out, so.
And all we're doing is replacing the pipe. Same pipe, same diameter. This pipe actually goes all the way up the side and collects all the runoff from these fields, and then goes up, I believe, even underneath the railroad tracks and connects that neighborhood up there. So that's a significant watershed. We did not propose to reduce the size of that at all.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't in your scope to.
It wasn't, but certainly
Calculate.
it would take
I
a
was
full
just-
drainage analysis of the town to figure out what's going to that.
Yeah, I was just curious because I walked out there the other day and looked at it. I was surprised to see it was so big.
Yeah, but I agree with you. It's a big pipe.
Okay, so the second question I have is in the lower right-hand side, there's an outfall. It looks like you're keeping a piece of an existing drain.
That's existing from your existing field that's out there today,
Okay, so that's going to be the main drain from the field. Is that
just
correct?
the under drains.
Okay, and my third question is, this field is going to be clay, right? Clay, maybe some sand, and it's going to be compacted.
It'd
So
be a
how-
normal clay / infield mix for the area right here. Actually, if I can,
So isn't that impervious? And so
um,
what's
it's,
the purpose of the drain? And how is that going to drain? You mentioned some swales and whatever, so I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
trying to figure out,
there's your infield mix in the shaded area here.
Yeah.
And then it'll be grass in the outfield. But as I go back to the grading plan, what they want to do, you're correct. A lot of the infield mix is, when you put that mix on, it becomes a poorly drained surface.
yeah, it's clay, right?
Yeah, it's a clay mix but it doesn't drain great. But what you want to do is pull any water from the ground below it, pull it away the best you can. to give it the best chance you got of getting water off. You know, no different than if you're watching the Red Sox on a summer evening, you know, if they get a big downpour, they go out there and put tarps on it because they have the same issue with, you know, their clay. It doesn't absorb the water. It doesn't take the water real well. So it's going to sheet off. And that's why we have everything basically pitching off the field as well.
So it's gonna sheet off and go into some catch basins or?
Right. You can see up here, we started a swale. We have a swale that comes down. We pick it up in a little yard drain right there, which comes to this system, which, you know, comes to that outlet you had talked about previously.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, well, I think your plans and presentation were pretty good, so I appreciate that. Thank you. No
Great,
more-
thanks, Steve. Sue, do you have any questions or comments?
I just have a couple of questions. One is, what would be the difference of drainage into the wetlands, pre and post?
Your existing field, you know, we're essentially putting a field to a field, so there's, you know, we're splitting hairs here. But the existing baseball field has a bigger infield, so it has a, you know, if we're looking at the infield mix as impervious, so to speak, your existing baseball field has a larger area. That being said, you know, we are putting a little concrete pad here, a little one here, just to hold the little bleachers. So that's a little bit addition. And we have this new sidewalk. So they're pretty close. I wouldn't say they're, you know, right on, but we're going from grass to grass and from field to field. So it's not a big impervious, you know, increase.
But you are increasing impervious?
I'd have to get back into the exact numbers. I don't have that right off the top of my head of where we ended up as far as infield mix versus infield mix, and then adding in those the sidewalk.
My second question is, I know the baseball field was bigger and you're pulling it back to
Sure.
softball field. Within what buffer zone is the baseball field now, and work within that zone to pull it back?
Okay, let's see if I can do this here. So here's your existing field. There's your 100-foot setback right here. Here's your 50-foot. You have your backstop is here. So your backstop's within your 100, and as you come down the right field line, you're kind of in the 50 right down on this side here. Okay.
Okay,
There's your buffers. Now, if I go to the proposed plan, we're totally out of your 50. And here's your 100. So you got this little concrete here. And
Okay.
then you have, you know, this little corner of the field up here, and then these two synthetic batting tunnel and pitching tunnel.
okay, so work would be done in no less than the 50-foot with the renovation between the baseball field, turning it into a softball field.
Well, let me just look at the grading. So we're talking the same thing. We're gonna have a temporary impact to get in this drain line, because that gets within your 50. We stay right at the limit of the 50, right here, to put in
Okay.
that manhole we talked about.
Yeah.
And then we have a little bit of grading back here just to, you know, get it reseeded and shaped, but then it goes back to grass.
Thank you.
Sure.
It's a great plan. We need it.
No,
Can
we've
I
had-
ask a
we've
quick
actually had
question?
A lot of input with, you know, softball dads and people of the town. And we've had 3 or 4 different meetings down there with them, to try and come up with ideas, kind of, you know, their wishes, what we would like to add, what do they like about other towns, and trying to create something that, you know, they can all be proud of, to have, you know, their women's softball down here.
Deb, you had a question?
Just so if your limit of work is at the 50, but you have the erosion controls at 25.
The limit of work is not at the 50. They have a lot more, like that synthetic field is in the 50 to 25.
Right here it is, yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
See this line right here, the one with little circles on it.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's our silt sock. And basically, if you've been out there and walked on the walk this perimeter on this side. There's an existing fence line, and then as you come up here, there's a little existing retaining wall. You can actually see it here, which is the fence line is right on top of it. So we're staying inside the existing fence line.
Great. So Peter?
No questions.
Allison?
I sort of thought I had a question about where the bigger synthetic crack, that area, that's the closest. It
Yes.
doesn't look like you're regrading in there.
There you go.
That's because there's no new grades
Right.
that between the
Your
50 and
existing grades out here are
25
pretty-
that I can see.
It's pretty flat out there today because it is. part of the
Yeah, it is.
baseball
It
field.
looks flat. Yeah.
So we don't have a.
Yeah.
You're correct. You know, we're showing,
It doesn't. Yeah, that's the only thing I was wondering about if you're regrading, because you're getting kind of close to the 25, but it doesn't look like you are.
but
Oh,
you know,
that's
keep in
it.
mind, you know, just, we have we're gonna put the silt fence up certainly, but there's a bigger barrier for us. We got a chain link fence that runs down this whole side that
Yeah.
we're staying
Yeah.
inside.
No, I was just thinking of if you were filling or something, really
No,
close to
no.
the 25 and you just didn't really show.
Yeah.
You didn't really show it, but I don't think you are because it's so
We aren't.
flat.
Nope, you're correct.
Paulina?
Just had a question about, are you planning to use any de-icing material on the sidewalk that you're constructing? Is it north? I'm not sure. It's outside the conservation jurisdiction, but the drainage from that sidewalk is going to lead into the wetlands. So I was wondering if you were planning to use some sort of de-icing material.
Well,
in the
I guess I can
wintertime.
speak to Ed on that, or let Ed speak to that, but certainly, obviously, the baseball field and wouldn't be something that's being used in the winter, so I wouldn't expect there to be any need to even clear the snow off of the sidewalk over here. I don't see a need. for
Ed,
that.
can you
Ed,
share what your practice is?
Yes, we don't shovel, plow, de-ice any walkways in town. It's come as and as Brad mentioned, the field will be closed in the winter time, but I understand the point. No, we would not be using de-icers there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay. Good day, Allison, Peter. Paulina. Did I get it? Sue, okay. Okay, I have a couple of questions. So the lights, tell us about the lights and how they're not gonna bother habitat.
Okay, so I have it, yes, I do, okay. Zoom in for you. So as I mentioned, light, those are your poles here. And those poles, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, we just looked at that the other day. I think there were 60 or 70 foot tall poles. A little bit shorter than the ones you have out on the synthetics out there today, but still fairly tall. The light fixtures that we're proposing are an LED fixture. Would only be used on game nights or practice nights, obviously. So it's not something that would be on a timer to come on every night. So it's not a everyday sort of thing. But in addition to that, when we work with Musco Lighting, who is your light system provider all around town for the athletic fields, they provide a photometric plan for us. And their lights, on each pole, there's several fixtures. And they're basically they aim them based on the dimensions and the location that we're showing on our plan. So they work with us and we come up with how to aim each individual head so that we're only lighting the field surface. And it goes as far as people in these bleachers are not even going to have lighting, so to speak. They are such advanced cutoff fixtures than what you see on like a street light when you're going down one of your town streets. Those kind of just shed light down and don't do a whole. These are actually directed more like a spotlight type thing, but they're aimed at a certain location to make sure we're getting coverage all over the entire field. But when you get outside that fence line, it's going to be dark.
And what about above the lights? Are they also dark night lights?
Yeah, they're dark. Yeah, everything's dark sky compliant. Yes.
Dark sky compliant, that's the word.
Yep.
Okay, so there's the two outlets, but those two outlets are existing and you're just retying into them.
So sorry, you're on the drainage. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm jumping, sorry.
You're exactly right. So here's your 48-inch here. And then you have this little outlet down here as well.
And they're both, so they're both existing and
Yep.
I would like you to get us the information on any increase in impervious area, so we actually can put that in our findings.
Okay,
Or the
I will
difference.
calculate it existing versus proposed. You want it for the entire site or just within the buffer?
I kind of want it for the whole site.
Okay.
I think that would be better, because that's where the stormwater is coming from, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
that's fine. We can do it.
And can you point out again where this existing fence is that you're not going beyond?
Sure. I'm gonna go back to existing conditions. Here we go. So here's your backstop. You can see the X's is kind of looking like that's our fence delineation. You can see where it keeps coming up right field
Yeah.
here.
So
Across the
that's
road,
staying.
here's your-
It's-
That stays.
That's not, that whole fence is staying that whole way?
Correct. And so here's your retaining wall. So now if I zoom out and I go back to our plan. So you see the fence is way over here.
Okay, so that's staying, and
Yep.
up to the fence between like the,
Yes,
here, the dugouts and the
Yep.
fence is what's that?
that was proposed. Just to be- Yeah, lawn, correct.
Right, and what's on the other side of the fence between the fence and the wetland?
There's a slope, it basically slopes from that fence line down into the wetlands. It's scrub shrub type
And
material.
it doesn't get cut, it doesn't get touched.
We are not
On
going-
outside
we
of
are-
that fence. it
We
doesn't.
aren't going on the other side of the fence.
Great. And the synthetic surface areas, you use that because it gets harder use or something?
Yeah, I mean, most of those areas are very concentrated. They're always in the same spot. It's a pitching mound, it's a batting, box, catcher's box. They're always in the same spot. If you try to do grass in those areas, Ed and his people will be pulling their hair out trying to, it'll end up just being mud. They just can't keep grass on those areas because they just get worn down.
And to the west of the field, is that the parking lot?
This is the parking lot right here.
That's parking lot. Okay, so my last question, and then I'll ask the commission again if they have any more. The 48-inch pipe.
Yep.
When you are removing that and replacing it, what happens to all of the water coming out of it during construction?
Well, the goal, and we had several discussions on this because we understand that you have high groundwater out there. The goal is to do this in, hopefully August.
August.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously from an environmental standpoint, but in all honesty, from a construction standpoint, it's easier. So that would be the issue. What if we do have some groundwater whenever they get to digging this thing? They're gonna have to put that in through some kind of a silt sack or collect any sediment that they're pulling out from that water.
Yeah, I mean, the 48-inch pipe, is it flowing all the time right now into the wetlands? No, it doesn't flow all the time.
No, it's
I'm
a
watching
it's a
Ed shake his
stormwater
head.
collection system.
Okay, so it only really flows when it's raining.
Correct.
Because, it's not, there's no weep holes along the way with groundwater getting into it. There's no
I
people
won't say
dumping
that,
their
I
sump pump.
won't be as optimistic
if
to
it's-
think that there's not any leaks in your pipe, but they
If
shouldn't.
it's not drained, I mean, if you don't see water coming out of it in August, then that's good.
Right, but whether or not you have any cracks in your joints along the way, or
Well,
some house
if it's-
somewhere in town that has a sump pump connected somewhere.
right. Well, I would like to hear that there's no water coming out of it
Yeah,
when
no,
it's not raining.
I'm sure the contract wants a contract.
Good, because then you have a mess. Yeah, like, if you know that there's water constantly it's a constant flow, then you're gonna have to deal with it whenever you do it.
No,
So,
I agreed, and that obviously makes their life a lot harder.
okay. Any commission members have any more questions? And then we can go to the audience. So, Dave, Allison, Peter, Paulina.
This is
So-
Dave. I would just comment that I was out there last week and wasn't raining. and there was some water flowing through the pipe. So it could have been groundwater or.
Right.
you know,
Groundwater is high right now.
Yeah.
It's been high because
But it wasn't much. It wasn't much.
wasn't much. Okay, so you what? Okay, did you look at both of the outlets?
No, I only looked at the big one.
The big one.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. Anybody else? Peter, Paulina. Jeff, okay. Anybody in the audience have any questions?
There are no raised hands.
So, I think the only thing I heard that we are still looking for is that number that shows the difference between impervious and pervious. Depending on how the rest of the board feels, if we want to close this and that number will come along before we complete our order of conditions, so we can plug that in. Is that an okay thing to do, Deb? You can check it. You can tell me I can't do that.
No, that's fine with me. I didn't know, do you want some kind of dewatering plan or anything? Or just,
That's a good idea because it could be a mess. Yeah.
We'll certainly have one in our specs. I mean, we actually met with DPW to kind of review that, but I don't know if you want us to pull out a spec to you, or would you rather just, or can it just be DPW to QC our construction documents to make sure we're dealing with groundwater?
I kind of like to understand how you're dealing with groundwater when you store, or any, stormwater,
Sure.
when you are digging holes, and that it's not just being pumped towards the wetlands.
Right,
Which-
no, we can specify that, the actual means and methods, we will probably dictate, no, we'll let the contractor choose which method he wants. But we can give the direction on what they can and can't do, as part of that.
Right, well, and we can require the, and this area is not greater than an acre, right? You don't need a whole SWIP to,
The NPDES, we haven't got that far yet, honestly. That's an interesting thought. 200, we're gonna be probably close.
so, well, so if a SWIP is required, then we would like to see a copy of that 14 days before you start construction, and a dewatering plan prior to, and so there should be a pre-construction meeting that
Absolutely.
our staff can attend, and we can be handed the dewatering plan at that time. Does that work for you?
That
Deb?
worked perfect, because then the contractor would be right there with us, and he can
Yeah,
have
so it can
input
come
into
from the contractor so that they are aware of the sensitivity to the area.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Like to make sure
okay,
that-
I can just condition it.
Yeah, that can be a condition.
Can I ask for a clarification on your impervious versus pervious numbers?
Sure.
How do you want to look at synthetic?
I think synthetic, can water go through it and it will get to the under drain?
Water goes in through it, yeah.
Then it's not impervious.
Okay,
I'm thinking impervious is like I see
concrete and the
benches,
walks.
the concrete, the walkways,
Gotcha, okay,
things that are
yep.
actually, I mean, I don't know, packed gravel. I mean, your dugout area is going to be smaller, I assume, anyway.
Yeah, dugout areas, you got the two bleacher pads and then the walkways and, but yes, we got it. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? Are we ready to close this? Does anybody have an objection if we add the impervious area afterwards? I think they're pretty close. By just looking at it, I would just like to kind of include it in our findings as a number so that we're able to make that statement. And they are being pulled further away. We will not, there's no work within the 25-foot buffer. There will be no mowing or anything in that 25-foot beyond that fence line anyway, which is already occurring. They're pulling further away from the wetlands and using 2 existing outfalls and treating them before the discharge has been treated. I guess the discharge is not actually being treated any better from the 48-inch, but I think you have the gigantic 48-inch, it's not gonna, you're not gonna be able to treat it in any sensible way. This would have been a really great location for a detention basin. That's water quality system that the MS4 program, somebody else will have to,
That'd be frowned upon in right field.
so our girls can play softball, which is a critical piece of our town. Okay, so anybody? Are we ready to close the hearing? I'll take a motion. You can pull this down off of the if you'd like to. Thank you.
I motion to issue an order of conditions
And close the hearing.
and close the hearing.
I second.
Great, and we will
So
review,
we're just closing, we're not issuing.
just closing the hearing, and then we will review the order of conditions and make that motion after. Thank you. All right, that was seconded, and, all in favor. We have Allison,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Paulina,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Janet, I. Great. I think we did it. Thank you very much. Just get that number to Deb. I assume that you can get that to her tomorrow or sometime soon, early next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Great, thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Oh, maybe there's more. You guys might still be here. 500 Dedham Avenue, Needham Reservoir Project update. Who's here to discuss that with us?
Yes, I'm here, Tom Ryder, Town Engineer.
Oh, you're back.
Okay, and Justin Saviano and Laura Kraus is here as well. So this is an update that we promised you. So we have Beta has filed the ENF on our behalf for the sediment removal project over here at 500 Dedham Avenue. So Laura Kraus is here to talk more specifics.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tom.
Laura.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Laura Kraus from Beta Group, representing the town for this Needham Reservoir remediation and stormwater improvements project. I have a presentation that I will share with you.
Great.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So next slide. All right, so just things we wanted to talk about today in terms of this update, project background, what we've done to date, a little bit more specifics on the resource area delineation, wildlife habitat evaluation. We'll talk about the project design, anticipated construction process and staging, and then where we're headed next, because we have a long permitting road ahead of us and we wanted to get in front of you to we are looking to file our notice of intent in the next month or so. So wanted to get some comments from you to ensure that we are getting ahead of those types of things and things that the commission would like to see as part of the project in our notice of intent as we work through that and complete that filing. All right, so the project background, in the past, there's been some sediment migration from the DPW facility into the reservoir, and that's resulted in a shallow depth in portions of the reservoir along the western extent. There was a swale installed to help mitigate that effect. However, there's still some additional improvements that need to be made to that swale, and that is part of this project. We'll be reconstructing the swale, restabilizing it, and adding some check dams. The plan is to remove approximately 1,600 yards of sediment from the reservoir to improve fish habitat by increasing water column depth as well as increasing circulation. We'll also, like I said, update or regrade the swales and install some check dams through the swales. And then there is a plan to restore portions of the walking path that have eroded, the walking path that surrounds the reservoir. So what we've done to date, the resource area delineation was conducted a little in the fall of 21. We submitted an RDA last spring, so I don't know if you remember, but we presented for you to conduct some sediment sampling within the reservoir. That sampling was conducted over last summer. And then this winter, we completed submission of the environmental notification form to MEPA and our wildlife habitat evaluation within the limits of work. So the resource area delineation, we're mostly concerned with essentially this area here. We did delineate the limit of bank and wetlands along the reservoir here, as well as some streams, and then the wetland in this location.
What's the difference between the blue and the green that look all like wetlands?
Different types of wetlands. One is the scrub shrub, and one's more of an emergent wetland. Just in terms of floodplain, there is no portion of the reservoir is actually within the 100-year floodplain as mapped by FEMA. Like I said, we recently completed our wildlife habitat evaluation, and the goal of this evaluation was to look, within our limits of work, but also within the reservoir as a whole to see, if we're going to be impacting some emergent vegetation, or when we impact the emergent vegetation in the area of the dredging, we wanted to make sure that we weren't eliminating that feature throughout the entire reservoir, and we won't be, because there are those habitat features throughout the reservoir. Talk a little bit about the sampling results. There were no reportable concentrations of any contaminants, but we did have low levels of polyaromatic hydrocarbons, low levels of metals, VOCs. One sample did contain some PCBs, and then there were pesticides and herbicides in 2 of the sediment samples as well. Just to give you a background, we have to do the sampling for the 401 water quality cert process, because we have to know how to manage the sediment when we are working with it and moving it out of the reservoir, and then also where we can bring it once that process is complete. We don't want to have a pile of sediment without a place for it to go. So we have to, kind of line that up beforehand.
So are you saying no concentrations were above a reportable level?
No above reportable limits. So there is no MCP concerns here in terms of Massachusetts contingency plan, but there were detected levels, but they were just below. They were actually very far below the reportable conditions.
Thanks.
So project elements, installing, we're going to have a substantial dewatering plan for this project in order to construct and to conduct the dredging. So we'll have a turbidity curtain, we'll install the turbidity curtain, and then we'll have cofferdams. The whole area will be dewatered. Large equipment will make its way into the reservoir. Material will be excavated. It'll be brought to an area to decant, so we can remove all of the water from the sediment, and then it will be taken off-site based on the sampling and where is what the available locations following, or that we are able to identify during the 401 process. We'll also be regrading the swales, restoring those sections of the walking path that I discussed. And there is a plan to install a informational kiosk at somewhere on the site. I don't know if we've identified exactly where that is, but I know that that's a request of the commission, or at least of the Natural Resources Department. So,
but an informational one that's about
kiosk,
what?
that was requested by, and Deb, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more. I think it's so that there can be postings about wildlife and things like that at the reservoir park area.
Not necessarily about the project. but
Not about the project, no, but it's going to be
No,
installed
we were
as-
looking, how we have kiosks in different
Yeah, yep,
areas. I
yep.
thought that since this gets so much foot traffic, we should have a kiosk where we can put presentations we're going to be having, just various information. So we're, looking for a good spot to have that. So we added it into this project.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So this plan is a little busy, but this is the dredge operations plan. So I'll walk you through it. This right here is the wetland. This is the boardwalk that crosses Alder Brook. This is the driveway that comes up to the staging area up here. So the plan is to shut down this portion of the driveway, and that'll be the staging area for like equipment. And that'll be the way that sediment will make its way from the dredging operation through the wetland up to the dewatering area. So this will be the sediment dewatering area here. We also have our actual dewatering area for the basin, because we will be basically pumping water from the reservoir to a frac tank, which will then discharge through a dirt bag into this area surrounded by erosion controls, and then it will infiltrate and make its way back to the wetland, but it will be clean at that point.
How long is this process supposed to take?
That is a good question that we can answer in the notice of intent. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's, you know, a few months, 2 to 3 months. Here is our plan for the swale. So this area, there'll be kind of 2 swales, one along the back side, the north side of the DPW yard, and then one along the east side here. And this is just a view of that east side of the DPW kind of staging area. There are significant invasive species, which we plan to manage as part of the reconstruction of the swales. In terms of impacts, obviously this is going to have a large temporary impact on the reservoir. It's I think around 30,000 square feet of work within the reservoir itself. We have about, I think it's 1,600 square feet of bordering vegetated wetland impact associated with access, because we have to get into the area. These blue areas are located between the delineated bank and the boundary of the mean low flow, or the mean low water. So it's not technically land underwater, but we did feel like we needed to quantify it. So we did quantify that as part of the ENF, and then we'll restore those areas. It's a really low gradient bank essentially. But we didn't want to just quantify it in linear feet. We also wanted to quantify it in square feet. And then we have some riverfront area impacts associated with the staging.
So why is the purple like not like the 101 little contour that's in the middle? Is that a high point? That's in the white?
Oh, this area right here?
Yeah, why?
Okay,
why?
so this area is it's basically between the mean low water elevation and the bank boundary. And we're not going to be altering that. So that's that finger of cattail. If you've been out to the reservoir, there's like a little finger of cattail that blue heron likes to hang out at. So we didn't want to eliminate that feature, that habitat feature. So we decided to leave that as part of the design.
But why are you doing the other little blue area then?
This area, in order to construct the cofferdam around this area, it has to tie into the bank just to be able to dewater that whole area. So this will be temporary, this area will be dewatered, but there's no actual physical alteration. So, but we do have to cut into the bank here in order to install that cofferdam and turbidity curtain.
And how does the contractor know where to stay within?
Contractors, well, the plans, right? So that they'll have these plans. And then, you know, a lot of dredging contractors have they have GPS on their dredge operation equipment, so they can like see where they're allowed to dredge and where not to. Just some impact mitigation features that we've already designed into the project. We are planning to conduct the work during the low flow season, so July through October, November, in order to prevent, so we don't want to be doing it in the winter to avoid any impacts to any hibernating wildlife. And it also will help decrease the amount of dewatering we need to do, because we'll be during low flow conditions. We'll have oversight during construction, or especially during dewatering when we're lowering that level within the cofferdam. We'll have oversight with our wildlife biologist. He'll be out on site relocating any species if when they are identified as they lower the water level. the work will be conducted behind cofferdams to decrease turbidity increases in the waterway. All temporary, all impact areas are temporary and they'll be restored. So we have planting plans for the bank and for the wetlands that will be temporarily altering, as well as the buffer zone. We're proposing to use swamp mats to access the dredging area. So they'll place those large timber mats in the wetlands so that we can minimize the compaction of the soils. We'll install the turbidity curtains. If this happened in Rosemary Lake when they did that dredging operation, they did place some temporary fill. In this case here, we'll require that they put a geotextile below any temporary fill so it can be easily taken out. And there's like a delineated limit of where that material was installed. And we'll also be conducting invasive species management as part of the project. This is just a picture of our site restoration plan. So we do have restoration plantings within the temporary wetland impact area. And this is the buffer zone dewatering area, which we'll replant as well as after the dewatering is complete. And next steps. So we plan to submit in March, likely for the March 30th filing deadline. We'll have our ENF certificate by March 27th. That's kind of the next step there. It should be noticed in the Monitor tomorrow. And there may be a public meeting. There usually is a public meeting associated with the ENF filing. Typically it's virtual. So that's something that will be coming in the next couple of weeks. The anticipated hearing would be on April 13th. So it sounds like we'll be in person for that. Be submitting our 401 submission, 401 water quality cert application in May, our PCN with the Army Corps in August. And then I believe the bidding is anticipated in the spring of 2024, and then construction and low flow in 2024 in the summer.
Great. Is that the end?
That is the end. So I will stop sharing unless we want to go back to any plans or anything.
Maybe, yeah, leave
sure.
it for the moment. I'll go through the commission and see if anybody has any questions, because this is basically just a kind of an informal discussion. and
Absolutely,
You
yep.
haven't actually filed yet.
Mhm.
But if anybody wants to have any input on what that filing might look like, this is a good opportunity. Allison, anything?
Yeah, just a couple of things. And, based on the Rosemary Pond dredging project, which is not really apples to apples, because that was a much bigger project and all that,
Very true.
phosphorus and everything. But in any event, there was quite a significant monitoring program that I know they didn't follow perfectly, but I remember Deb was involved with that. And I was wondering if there's going to be something like that on this, maybe better. And another thing was that they made this little place for fish. They found fish or turtles or whatever. They had this I don't know if you're going to, get rid of all the water, or you're just going to have, it in pieces or parts of it, not the
right.
whole thing. And then the last thing is how much sediment do you think you'll take out? I mean, how much deeper do you think it'll be, and how long do you think that'll last?
Okay, I can
before it
answer
fills up
those
again?
questions. So thank you very much for your questions.
Sure.
In terms of the fish relocation, the reason why we needed to have a kind of fish refuge area during the Rosemary project was because the entire area was drawn down. Because the most of the reservoir will still be active with water, the fish will just be relocated into the reservoir. In terms of the monitoring program, yes, monitoring will absolutely be conducted. It's required during dewatering, and there will be a SWIP required for this. So, if that's written into the order as part of the, in terms of the monitoring, that can certainly be conducted. And then lastly, your question in terms of how long is it, the volume, it really varies. So when we conducted our sediment sampling, we looked at, basically we conducted cross section. So we looked at both where we found soft bottom and then where we found hard bottom of the reservoir. So there's actually you have two bathymetric surveys, one of the surface of the sediment and then one of the hard bottom of the reservoir. And that that difference in that, or that cover of sediment is highly variable within this area, but it extends up to, I think, 4 to 5 feet of sediment depth. And we expect that this, that this restoration will last a pretty long time, because most of that sediment washed in from from some washout from the DPW yard, and by installing the drainage swales up gradient, we're preventing that from happening anymore.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's one of the things I was wondering, where is the sediment actually coming from? I was thinking it was coming from that 48-inch pipe coming over to the ball field. Is that at all? I was like, after we just talked about the 48-inch pipe, are they connected in any way? That 48-inch pipe, that wetland, and this discharge point?
There is a stream through there, yes. But there was a, and I don't know, Tom, if you want to speak to this, I'm happy to speak to it. I don't know if you want to as well.
I think there could be a connection to that as well, Janet. Not positive, but that's something I think we should explore as we're doing the work and find more BMPs to do for the area. So that is a thought that I have as well, going into this project.
Thanks. Next, Peter?
Yeah, so the trail around the reservoir gets a lot of use, and this project's going to take in the months to complete. Is that portion of the trail going to be closed during that time?
That is correct. So that we'll have signs it will be closed on 2 sides, and then we'll have signs about halfway through the trail, so that people know that if you keep going, you've got a long way back to go, kind of thing, because you'll have to turn around. So there will be a section of trail that will be closed during construction, given the amount of activity and construction equipment that will have to cross the trail.
I think I've mentioned this before when this project has come before us. That reservoir has an extraordinary amount of interest, and not just people using it to walk around, but in terms of people who study the nature around it. And so much so that there's multiple daily posts on Facebook around the sort of the denizens of that area. And I think this is why one of the reasons for the kiosk is just to make sure that communication is good, because I can imagine a lot of disgruntled people, number one, realizing that the trail is closed, and number two, realizing that somehow the creatures who live there, lives are being disrupted by this. And so I guess my call is to make sure there's as much communication as possible.
Yeah, Peter, I was agreeing. I totally agree with that. And I was thinking about this kiosk, and if it can be early in the, almost at the very start of construction, and using the kiosk during construction to keep people, like, have some pictures in there of what this is all about and the time frame, and just to really, because people, aren't paying attention to our hearing on this, and they may not be at town meeting understanding that this is an item, and they're going to get there and they're going to be like, what is going on? And so many phone calls are going to be made to everybody in town, that the more we can, or you can, and that your team can appease that in some way for informational purposes, and as well as, adding some highlights of some of the wildlife, because it is a draw, it's a huge draw right there.
Can I just ask something? Just in reading the wildlife habitat report, we do have beaver and muskrat.
Mm-hmm.
And those boxes weren't checked off on that.
Not within the impact area. So we did note, so each of the forms is for a specific impact area.
Mhm.
So, well, we did note, and so if you see our overall plan, we do see that there's lodges. We did actually identify the beaver lodge, and but within the impact area, we did note beaver activity within the wetland, but not actually within the physical area of the impact area. If that
Yeah,
makes
because I know the muskrats spend a lot of time in the bank over on that side. They're quite often over in that area, in the finger that comes out.
Okay, so we can, I mean, we can update that absolutely and include that. And we will, you know, just be aware of that during construction as they install their, as we install the turbidity curtain and the cofferdams to make sure that we're shepherding anything out of the limit of work before they actually start conducting the drawdown.
And I just have one other thing. Did you guys figure out how many mature trees you need to take out?
That we were actually able to to get to the dredging area, we don't have to remove any. So that we have no trees that we have to remove for that. In terms of the dewatering area, we were also able to, like, we were able to locate it without having to remove any mature trees. So it's all just saplings in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, you're all set. Dave?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. I understand that part of the walkway is going to be restored. Wasn't exactly clear. I didn't study the plans, but you know, what the extent of that is or how it was going to be done. I just would note that when that path was originally put in, most of it was stone dust. I think it was stone dust. You know, I was there the other day, and that is compacted almost to the impervious degree. And the southern portion that goes in, like in front of the parking lot where there's some kickboards there, like when it rains, it just fills up with water and it doesn't drain. And so whatever, you know, could be attached to this project that would improve at least part of that walkway, I think would be great. The other question I have is, you know, in the summer, that pond just becomes filled with, you know, water lilies and, you know, weeds and, you know, it's not in a very good shape. Is this project going to improve that any, or is it just removing the sediment in hopes that things will get better? You know, I understand the need to remove the sediment, but I think that pond has some major problems that, you know, I'm just wondering how this project will impact that.
Because the work is focused kind of in a particular area, it's not going to address that throughout the pond. That's not really, like you indicated, really the goal of this particular project. You know, and a lot of those, you know, like some pond lilies and things like that do provide aquatic habitat or a habitat for some aquatic species. So we didn't want to remove everything, you know, that they do provide some level of habitat. So, but no, that's not really the goal of this project.
But
Yes, I just want to follow up a little bit too on that is we have discussed, this is not part of this project. So we have discussed long-term maintenance of the areas. People have asked us regarding the dock areas on what we're planning on doing in that area. That is not part of this project. That is something to look forward to. But as Laura was saying, this is just focusing on the sediment that we need to remove.
But I guess let me just follow up. What is the main purpose of removing the sediment?
To remediate the release of sediment that occurred from the DPW facility.
So part of it's going to prevent the sediment from accumulating,
Right,
right?
to prevent additional sediment from accumulating, and as well as improve the water column depth in this area, to improve water circulation through it and improve water column depth, which improves what decreases the temperature at the lower elevations and improves habitat for fish.
All right, well, I think you put a lot of thought into this and it's a nice presentation. It's a complicated project, but I think you did a good job.
Thanks, Dave. Sue, anything to
I-
add?
I just have a quick question. So it's the swale structure that's going to prevent any more sediment from going to the reservoir from the DPW facility? Or will there be other stormwater improvements?
Yeah, that's correct. It is reconstructing the swale and then adding check dams through the swale that will improve, retention and TSS removal from the DPW facility.
Thank you.
Yeah, anybody have anything else to add?
I was just wondering, are you gonna have any public outreach about this, any type of town meeting or anything like that?
Tom, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't know that we necessarily had that planned, but I don't think it's a bad idea. So I'll let Tom maybe address.
Yeah, I would appreciate if I lived in the area to have that information, so I look forward to doing. First, we're probably gonna go through the NOI and the ENF and then see where a lot of this communication is going to make sure that we actually had a Zoom meeting with another project. We were not the proponents of the project, but we were helped facilitate an Eversource gas main. And I thought it went extremely well. Notices were given to the abutters. Not a lot of them showed up, but a good portion did, and they were very interested in the project. I think that's a good avenue to look at.
There is an actual reservoir Facebook page.
Yeah.
Maybe advertising something on there, might be helpful.
Yeah, or at least having information available and, a way to contact whoever you want to be the spokesperson. I don't know, Tom, is that you, or maybe Justin is the spokesperson, so that people can reach out when they have questions, and there'll be questions. You can count on the question. Yeah, and that Facebook page, I mean, it's the photos that people are taking over there are just amazing. So there'll be thing, if the beaver comes up and you hear about it and somebody else stops by in the middle of the day and then somebody else stops by later in the day. I mean, we must all be on the Facebook page. All right, so this was just kind of an introduction. I think that one of, my questions I heard, trees, stormwater, and public notification, making sure that somehow is addressed. But we really appreciate you coming in. And so I don't know if there's anybody in the audience for this informal discussion. Clay, is there anybody out there that has their hand raised?
There are no hands.
So I think we're done. Is it, because we're gonna vote or anything, we're just gonna wait for you to submit something. Thank you for giving us this heads up and explaining it all to us. You may be repeating all of what you just said word for word when it's a public hearing, but we
That's
will be in
okay.
person.
That's okay. It is such a big job and it is such a big project that I think it's just really important to have your eyes on it before the filing so that it's not a surprise.
Yeah. So I don't know, Deb or Clay, if our April 13th hearing is in person, and that can be hybrid for anybody watching or, any residents. Will the applicants be able to post stuff on a, PowerPoint kind of a situation? Will we have that availability for them? Because seeing it on your computer screen is great. Seeing it when somebody's holding it in a meeting room so that a board can see it is great, but then nobody in the virtual world can see it. Are we going to be able to have both?
I leave this to Clay.
Yeah, with the current hybrid setup that we have, I believe that the projector will be in use and will broadcast as well as any. The projector will be utilized both for sharing screen like we're doing now, but it'll be a projector for anybody in person. And it'll also allow anybody that's attending and remotely and wanting to ask a question will also kind of appear on that projector screen so that they can be present.
Okay. Good. So, yeah, because I've definitely been part of both scenarios and some work better than others. So it's great when you can have a big screen and that we can see the presentation in person, but the people that are virtual can also see the presentation clearly and hear the discussion. Okay, great. Well, we'll see you in April.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you having us today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Laura.
Okay, so any meeting minutes, where are we with our meeting minute taker?
So, yeah, I'll just do the few updates I have. So we only had one applicant and it's a woman that's already doing minutes for the health department and for the design review board, and she also has a background in conservation.
Great.
So the deadline was just on Wednesday, so I wanted
Oh.
to make sure we didn't get any other
Like as
applications.
Yesterday? Yesterday.
As
Wednesday?
in, yes, exactly, as in yesterday. Yeah, this week's going. So anyways, I anticipate that we'll be making an offer to this person. So hopefully next week, you know, I'll talk to her first, but then hopefully have like maybe a Zoom with her and Clay and myself, so she gets a good idea of, you know, what the commission likes for minutes and just trying to get through our backlog of minutes. You know, we did have extra time in the estimate so that she could work on the backlog of minutes as
Great.
well. So that should be happening within the next couple weeks, which is good. So just a couple other things. So we only had Dave sign up for anything for MACC, which starts next week. Just wanted
Great.
to make sure nobody else wanted to sign up for anything.
There was one that sounded good for me, but
Just
like
let
it in
Elisa
person.
know if you're gonna, and she'll,
yeah, I like the in-person. Well, next year they'll be in person.
Hey, this is Dave. I have a question about that. Are we gonna get some type of login information?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so
they will.
that's what's
They,
coming.
I think they send it the day before,
Okay,
if I remember. But you will, yes.
thank you.
And they send it per workshop, so you should get an
Right.
email with a link for each one as it comes up.
Yep. 311 Dedham is coming back to us at the next meeting. They DEP was happy with their revised plans, so they're sending it back to us as an amendment. So
What about having to come up with more area someplace?
they
for
did,
them?
they did. So they have the 2-to-1 that's required. So anyways, DEP is happy with the plan, but it's coming back to us for an amendment. I don't know about the plantings that they've chosen, so, you know, there might be some wiggle room that we might want to at least look at their
Okay.
planting plan. So
Okay.
that'll be coming back to us. We have, you remember the woman Joy that did the presentation on the butterflies and damselflies and
Yes,
and
lovely
and-
woman. Mhm.
yeah, she's really good. So we have signed her up for, so we have 4 presentations that she's going to be doing. The first one is
In person? Are they all in person?
so they are in person and remote.
Wow.
So she'll have it
Hybrid.
both. Yes, hybrid. The first one is the beginning of April, and that's on vernal pools and their wildlife.
Nice.
Yeah, then we have May 1st, we're doing a birds in your backyard presentation.
Nice.
And then in June, we have a native plant gardening for wildlife presentation. And
Nice.
then I wanted to have her do something for kids. So she has all kinds of endangered species licenses. So that's going to be a live animal in person, probably in July. So she has like crocodiles, all kinds of cool stuff. So that'll be an in-person for kids.
Cool.
So I wanted to let you know about that.
So how does the rest of the world know about these? Like I
How
hear
do they
you tell
know?
me, but I don't hear them other places. So how do they get notified? How do people get notified?
Well, so putting the notices in kiosks, that's one of the uses for this kiosk. That gets a lot of foot traffic. And then there's the PR person for the town. They put it up on the town website and town Facebook pages. We have done ads in the newspaper for previous ones. So there's kind of all different ways.
Awesome.
So, and I just wanted to bring up, since we're almost in March, you know, we were talking about having commission-led walks, you know, birding walks, things like that. So, you know, just start thinking about that. I know, birding, you had talked about last year, but it was too late in the season. So
I don't know
haven't,
anything about birding, so somebody.
Yeah.
One of those people on my other screen, maybe they know something about birding.
yeah, and just, you know, any topics that you think may be of interest. I haven't been to Ridge Hill since they knocked down the,
Oh, I was just there this weekend, actually. It was it was sad.
yeah, it must be strange. So, but they're going to be seeding that whole area with our pollinator
The
seed
wild,
mix.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, there's like 1,000 picnic tables, so it's kind of funny.
yeah,
They're
we'll
all been-
picnic in the pollinators. Is that it?
And then like, yeah, 'cause so it's just gonna be a meadow until
Yeah,
somebody decides to do something different.
right. I don't know if you've heard about the updated biomap. But I was in a webinar on that today, and it's really interesting. I suggest you go on the biomap webpage. I can send you the link to it.
Yeah, great.
But they really have zoomed in on the towns, and they're showing the important areas we need to kind of you know, think about.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And
Can our
So-
town somehow be like, can we have a link on our website, on the Conservation Commission site for our town so that it was, like, if people are doing work in an area that
Mhm.
we want to focus on?
Yeah.
Say, go check the biomap.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I'll work with Clay to get that done. So we were gonna talk about the trees tonight. I know Mrs. Herlock from Edgewater,
Mhm.
who is the abutter to that project, the tree removal.
Yep.
She had contacted me last week about a tree bylaw and where the town was at with that and what the commission was doing. So I told her we may be talking about it tonight, so I think she's in the audience.
Is
So
she in the audience?
if we're not gonna have a big discussion, maybe we can just hear what she, you know,
Yeah.
has to say. And go from there.
Yeah, that really, if she's here, I would like to move that forward. I am anxious personally to go out and shovel my driveway, but,
Hmm.
but we should talk about that for a minute, especially if we have somebody that's here specifically for that purpose. Do you have anything else?
Nope, I think that's it.
Okay. Is Herlock, I can see you on our screen. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, you want to talk about the trees and your opinion and have you seen our our guidelines and?
I have, yes,
Yep.
I have, and I've spoken with Debbie and I've spoken with Ed Olson. And I understand that there was an effort 4 or 5 years ago to update these policies and actually make them bylaws as they are in Wellesley and other towns. And I just was interested in, I think Ed and Debbie said that there had been some interest again in reviving that effort. And I would be happy to be involved in that and find out what happened in the past and how we could move that forward based on, you know, the recent developments, not only on Edgewater, but Reddington and other streets.
Yeah, thank you. Well, so there's a couple of things. So we have our guidelines that we were thinking ourselves about updating a little bit more and making sure that we like what it says, and if we want to change it, if we want to be more specific on the trees or change the trees or whatever. And so we do have a number of people on our commission that are more experts on trees than I am, but I just like them. I know that a few years ago we did try, I was had various conversations with different people, and it becomes to get it through the bylaws. It definitely needs support from the select board. I have asked various members of the select board if they would be willing to support a tree policy, and I have had some positive responses from them, but I just don't think it's on the top of their list. So that seems to become is that it's not being brought up enough. So we can only deal with the ones that are within our buffer zone.
Right.
And I'm hoping, I know that you are uptight about the Edgewater Drive trees. I personally am hoping that the improvements that they're going to do in the landscaping that they're going to do is going to be better for the wetlands actually, and the habitat, because there's such a diverse amount. It's frustrating to see trees come down. I have some beautiful pine trees in my yard, so I get that, but the town seems to have, the select board seems to have struggled in the past with not allowing people to cut down trees on their own. So it becomes a thing. But I am willing to be there as part of the, yes, if people are gonna cut some trees down in uplands, they should have to do something, replace them or something. What that looks like is hard to come up with. Have you looked at our policy, and do you have any opinions on our guidelines?
Well, yes, I have, and our Needham has guidelines which don't have, those are guidelines, they're not bylaws. And it's anyway, I would be very interested in any sort of effort to revive, to just find out if we could put something together that then we could lobby the select board and try and make some progress with. I know that it's not just Edgewater that people are concerned, and you know, with I think it's worth an effort, and so
Yeah.
I just wanted to inquire if you all are how that happens and how to get involved, and if it's a possibility.
I'm interested. What did Eddie have to tell you?
His thoughts are that it's not just a conservation issue. It's a big issue. It involves planning. I mean, in Wellesley, it comes from the planning board, not the Conservation Commission. It's really a development development guidelines, which makes sense, because that's that's the cause of the problems here, the developers. It's not just people who live here just suddenly deciding to cut their trees down. It's developers coming in and you know, changing the shape of of the land. So he said that there's a lot to consider, and there are a lot of pieces, there are a lot of arguments to support this, and it's a lot of education that's required to help people understand and get on, on the bandwagon. But he's definitely in support of reviving the effort, and just said I should, talk to you all, certainly talk to you all and perhaps Marianne Cooley, I think, and find out what's going on. So
Yeah,
just don't,
definitely.
I don't know the procedures. I've not been involved.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know the procedure either, but we're always a nice board to start with, because we like trees. But you may want to just even send an email or a letter to the select board and the town manager, and just be like asking them where they're at. Now there is different people that are part of that, and Deb, you were just mentioning, isn't there the PR person? What's the PR person's name?
Cindy, today was her last day. Cindy Roy Gonzalez. Yeah, literally, today was her last day. I know that they're going to be replacing her, hopefully. But yeah, she's not currently available.
Yeah.
Well, who
Well,
would
Janet, we
be?
have a tree hugger in Artie.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the planning board, Artie Crocker, who's on the planning board, was on the Conservation Commission, and he's a big tree supporter.
That's true. And
But
I mean, we can also look at our tree policy, making it part of our bylaw.
Right, so to make it part of our bylaw, it has to be approved by town meeting, which
Mhm.
maybe that would be something. I do feel like typically, people accept our guidelines. So I don't know that we need to make it part of our bylaw, a
Mm,
bylaw, but,
I would disagree with that. Just
okay.
the developers, there are
Yeah.
4 examples on Edgewater, and I just drove past Reddington Street, 38 Reddington, another basically clear cut. That's not conservation, so I don't know if you all.
Right, well, that's the thing, I agree with having a bylaw for the whole town, but for our guidelines, they're only our guidelines for conservation. So to change our guidelines for conservation and make them a bylaw for conservation, we can only make them a bylaw for conservation. We're not able to make them a bylaw for the whole town.
What about comparison with the Wellesley bylaw, the Wellesley tree removal bylaw?
What was your question about it?
Well, I was just thinking it might be a start to compare it for comparison purposes, to look at the
Yeah,
Wellesley
their
bylaw, what they-
replacement
Yeah.
is by the inch, so
Yeah,
It's
you
different
take
than
down a
ours.
16-inch tree,
no,
that's what you're
That would be
replacing.
impossible if you clear cut it. I mean,
Not
Right.
for the
sometimes, as a landscape architect, sometimes that's impossible to have an inch by inch. If you have a site and you have the ability, you buy a property and you have the ability to develop it, and you have 48-inch, I'm just saying that there is a conflict, because you can't plant that many trees. You have to have another place where you can plant them. You can't put back and build some, you have to have enough, like you say, okay, then you give money into the fund and into the city to buy, for trees or for other landscape. You can't, but to have a 1-for-1, having to plant it on that same property. As a landscape architect, this happened to me, in New Hampshire at one point. It was so ridiculous to have to plant. We had to plant 1,000 trees, like 5 feet apart. It was insane, so you have to be sensible about how to do it and have it, work really right. But even in Boston, if you cut a tree down, you have to have a tree hearing. You actually have a tree hearing. So Boston's not like the forefront of, everything, for sure. And you would think in
In my
Needham
town,
that
you have to have a tree
it would be
hearing
a little
too.
better.
Hmm.
To cut
Mhm.
one tree down in your property? No, you don't.
Well, maybe it's only public street trees. If it's public trees, you have to have a
There's a state law.
Okay.
The state law addresses public shade trees. it has to be inspected by a warden and you have to have a hearing.
That's a state law? you
Yeah,
just said?
I know this because years ago, the town wanted to
I
cut
didn't know that
a
actually.
tree down on our street and, some of us complained about it because it was in the public
Oh.
right away.
I
Whereas,
didn't realize it was a state law.
Oh, was
That's
it a public, I mean, was it a, like a highway,
yeah,
like a
they
state road?
they wanted to widen the road and they
Was it
took
a
down-
state road? It wasn't like a private
was a
road,
town-
like it
it was
was a
a town
state
road.
road.
There's a.
No.
there's
Oh, just a
state-
town road, not a state road, not a state highway, huh?
Right.
Okay,
it was
huh,
Webster Street.
interesting.
Yeah, that is
Okay.
interesting.
But, I was gonna mention that, the DCR has a pamphlet, like a little handbook on, tree bylaws that, specific to Massachusetts. So that's an interesting thing to look at and a good place to start.
Well, in practice, DCR is a little,
Yeah, but it's an informative thing.
So
they don't
Gina-
cut the tree down, but they might put a road 1 foot away from the tree, which would kill it.
Well,
So,
no, this is,
Yeah.
this pamphlet is specific to tree bylaws.
yeah.
for-
Oh,
Janet,
okay.
I'm sorry, do you know, was there a document that was submitted to the select board? Draft tree bylaw that they
I think it
reviewed?
was part of the stormwater bylaw, actually. And they crossed the tree piece.
Okay, so they didn't like comment back and say, we don't like this about it, or we don't like the.
No,
that
I don't
about it."
think that it was more. It was during the stormwater piece. Trying to say to minimize tree removal. And then there's been conversations just about would they earlier, well, maybe 5 years ago and prior, would they consider a tree policy? And everybody was kind of like, don't look at me. So
I'm just wondering, we don't need to start from scratch.
yeah,
It
I
seems
don't
as
know.
though
I
there was
think all
already a
we have is
working group.
ours. Yeah, I don't know.
We might
of
have to
one.
start from scratch. We might have to start from scratch,
Mm,
pretty much, for like a town-wide policy, not a conservation policy.
Yeah,
and
I
the
just
thing is
didn't know what had been done so far.
that politically, in terms of trees and shade and global warming, I mean, it is a much better time to try to do this now. There's a lot more impetus.
Well, Clay
and
and
other
I are
people have
part of
done it.
that natural resources committee
Yeah.
with Artie Crocker, and
Yeah.
our
Yeah, he's a great-
priority is trees. So
I mean, I could see Artie really pushing
Yeah.
this and not giving up like a dog with a bone. So,
Yeah, so I mean, it's a matter of finding one that we like, so maybe the DCR tree, bylaws would be helpful.
You had a bunch of other examples in that.
I had some examples.
Lexington has a good
Yeah.
one.
Was Lexington the one of the ones I pulled out? I think I pulled
Lexington
out a
definitely has a
couple,
good one.
but it's hard to kind of, I think I Googled tree bylaws and a
Yep.
few towns came up, but it wasn't a lot. It wasn't as much. I mean, Wellesley always comes up, but, and Newton.
This isn't a new thing at all. I mean, 40 years ago, I worked at Tyson's Corner in Virginia, and they had a tree bylaw where on your own private property, they had the right to tell you couldn't cut your tree down. That was 40 years ago, Tyson's Corner, Virginia. So it's been around, they've been around a while. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying that there's precedence for sure.
Yeah, and Clay had found some from Texas and maybe from Virginia, like he had found a bunch of other states. There wasn't as
Yep.
much that I could easily find in Massachusetts with just trying to find something, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe if, we're each willing to do some research and start sending things to Clay, and he can upload them into our Dropbox. Does that make sense?
Okay. Okay.
Anything that you find, just send off to Clay. Right now, there's a bunch of stuff in there that Dave sent him and that I sent him. And And now with our policy, our guidelines. that
Janet,
we
can I
have-
just say one more thing?
Mhm.
If anybody's interested, the Massachusetts law is Title 14, Chapter 87. And it lays out all the requirements if you're gonna do something with a public shade tree. And I think it's interesting because
Yeah, if you
it
could
has like.
send that to
14
Clay, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's Title 14, Chapter 87.
That'd be great. If you could just send that right over to Clay, you know, if you can pull it up and print and PDF, and if that's easy, if it's not easy, maybe send him a link and he could pull it up.
I'm trying, I got
Our guidelines. I have a couple of questions. Curious for people's opinions. One of them is whenever feasible to keep a snag, which I think we have forgotten about, and I assume that says keep a snag at least 6 feet high shall be retained. We like that, right? 6 feet high is a good number. And then it says 6 inches or greater diameter. Whenever feasible. So the snag has to do with 6 inches or greater diameter, breast height is removed. So is 6 inches also, I was thinking 6 inches actually sounded a little small, but maybe.
I
6
think so.
inches-
I think it's a little small, yeah.
What
Because by the
should
time
be
it's
the
6 feet
number?
high, it won't be very big.
Yeah, but 6 inch by 6, yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, so now you have a pole, you know, just a. So what would be the right dimension if it's gonna be a snag?
Why don't you say 12?
Okay.
I've always
Anybody-
thought our replacement trees are too small. I mean, I thought it was going to be 2, 2.5, and somebody
Right,
said
so
it's
that,
1,
I
1.5.
haven't gotten to that question yet.
Yeah.
So is that, so our other comment is at a minimum 2-to-1 ratio, 2 new trees for each 1 tree. Do we like that policy?
Yes,
And so then the next one is the replacement tree must be what size? And do we want to say 2.5? Right now we
Yeah.
say 1.5.
Yeah,
2 and
Two
a
and a
half.
half is the right number?
yeah, because you can almost break off with your hand, vandalize a 1.5.
So you
And
don't
then
want to
it's tiny.
have, if it's 2-to-1, you know, if you have a, 48-inch tree, or whatever, you don't want to have the leeway to have them plant more trees if they're taking down larger trees. You always want it to be 2-to-1. You don't want it based on the value of the tree itself.
Can I say, one of the interesting, I think this is in the Wellesley tree bylaw, is that there's a special category that they have called significant trees.
Yeah,
And anything that's over 3 feet diameter is considered a significant
Yeah.
tree, and that gets special attention, special hearing, even if it's on
yeah,
private property.
Yeah.
So we might want to call out something
Yeah.
like that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea. Significant trees greater than 36 inches, somehow get those in to this guideline.
okay. Now I have a question. Would you consider a Norway maple that's 36 inch a significant tree? You know
I
what I'm
would.
saying? I mean, this is the fight that was on the, in the town common.
Yeah.
They said, oh, we're cutting down all the Norway maples because it's a Norway maple. It's, but yet it's significant. I mean, was a significant tree in
I
terms
tell
of
you, if
shade.
if it made it to 3 feet diameter, it's a significant tree.
I mean, I'm just saying that I don't think you should be able to use that as a caveat for, oh, it's like useless if it's a Norway.
No,
Oh,
I mean,
okay, so that's I wasn't sure which way you were going. If
No,
you
I
were
mean, a
saying the
field
Norway maple
full
was
of-
useless or
of saplings of Norway maple is no good, but one giant Norway maple, I don't have. a
Yeah, I
problem
mean,
with
if
that.
I mean, exactly.
Size
And there's other
trumps
trees that are
species.
decent. Go ahead. Sorry.
Size trumps species.
That's fair. As long as it's not really a bad one.
Oh, you mean like Iolanthus altissima or something? Tree of heaven? Oh,
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, the tree of heaven, oh my gosh, that's like growing up in my sister. It's gonna be bigger than the house. That
Yeah.
definitely should. cut down. Okay, and one of our things was shrubs, 4-1. We happy with 4-1 for shrubs? If we-
Yes.
It irritates me when they don't do trees and they do these little tiny shrubs
Yeah,
instead.
I know.
I think there should be a maximum or some kind of ratio or something. You shouldn't be
Oh.
able to do 5 blueberries, for a tree. I mean, I just don't think it's equivalent.
Right, I agree with you on that. I wonder how we can say that. Like for like 50% or something?
Or
Can be-
it's to the discretion of depending on the site. If there are
Percent.
huge trees,
Oh.
then maybe you do want to have shrubs and low, you know what I'm saying? We've got to be able to have some discretion. Because if you make it too detailed, then you're stuck in this bind of
Yeah,
that may not fit every single site,
yep. The last paragraph on this talks about if replacement trees are not feasible, then there's a contribution to the town of Needham Conservation Trust Fund, which we have never done. So at the moment, I'm thinking that we just cross that paragraph out.
Oh,
But
why?
Eversource, I think with Eversource, we did that.
Keep it in. Keep
But
it
we don't
in.
have a tree policy. We don't have a trust fund.
No, we don't.
Oh, we don't?
No,
Oh.
we don't have a separate account for that.
What?
So-
What about
I
for
know
the
that
tree
Parks
warden?
and Forestry, they have an account.
Oh, well, they give it to them.
Maybe the utilities do something with them. I don't know.
Give
But
it to
we don't.
them.
So we can, okay, so is it called the Town of Needham Conservation Trust Fund?
We've never had it. But we
No,
want
so
to be careful too, because the 311 Dedham
Yeah.
project, he wanted to put the really big house on the small lot and needed to do replication and was kind of looking to the town to find someplace off that site where he
Right.
could donate trees, and so you're kind of setting a precedence, I think,
Yeah,
with allowing people to, once you let someone donate to this fund, you've opened that can of worms.
Well, Cambridge does that. You could maybe ask them about how is it working,
Yeah,
I feel like for upland, donate to a fund, but for conservation area, they should have to plant them back in the buffer zone.
mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
So we-
some Eversource project though, remember the huge Eversource project? I don't think they were able to do that. Do you remember?
they ended up planting in Cutler Park. But that was within their easement, I thought, or maybe it wasn't within their easement, but maybe somehow they got some land. They did
Yeah.
it in Cutler Park.
It was in Needham and Dedham, right?
Yeah, but the trees that they did in Needham, I think. 'Cause
Mm,
we were like, you gotta replace the trees, and they said, okay.
yeah,
Well, they were like, "Oh." And they found a place in Cutler Park that maybe was also part of their easement, but it wasn't under their wires or something.
mm-hmm,
They found a place.
yeah.
So do we?
You just want to be careful about opening cans of worms, then you can't go backwards.
again, but if you have the discretion to permit that, you make the commission makes the decision.
It does say after review by the Conservation Commission,
Exactly.
but we don't have a Town of Needham Conservation Trust Fund, so
So that's a problem.
that, yeah, referencing it seems kind of silly.
Yeah, referencing it doesn't make
If
sense.
there's another, working with the tree warden, maybe, but I also don't know if we need to drag him into our stuff. I think,
Well, I think the other issue is, when we were talking about 311 and, having them pay for trees to be put on town property, then it was like, well, who's stuck with monitoring them?
right,
Then all of a sudden, it's Eddie's job to make sure that they survive for 2 years and, so I don't know. There's lots of moving pieces, I think.
Olivia, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just was, gonna ask if there's any way to add something about habitat consideration. And maybe that's sort of understood in all of this, I don't really know, but you know, if there's a proposal to remove a massive amount of trees that clearly is gonna affect a wildlife habitat, if there could be specific wording about protecting that.
Do
Maybe
talk about habitats. I know it says we may propose wildlife habitat replacement with high wildlife value. But up here, I think that was the whole reason for having our guidelines is because of habitat. I mean, that's kind of our goal.
Well, right, I know it may be sort of understood, but you know, when you take down 27 pine trees in, you know, as they did next to a place where he took down probably 30 pine trees in a very heavily trafficked wildlife zone, it's a major impact. And if there's any way to add consideration, specific consideration for, you know, particular wildlife areas, you know, over by.
Well, we definitely, I mean, kind of talk about trees, like what the point is of protecting the trees and the wildlife. But I know that in some towns, they talk about the wildlife corridor and protecting a wildlife corridor when it's obviously like.
And you know, that biomap might help because that
Oh,
might
yeah.
map out areas of, you know, they have all different
Contiguous, yeah.
categories of
Mhm.
protection. So, you know, using that might be helpful.
As a reference somehow.
Yeah.
The replacement policy is not gonna really work for the habitat in this way, you know, and it's heavily fertilized and heavily sculpted, so it's not the same thing at all.
I have a question about, I don't know if it's, I'm sorry, my computer is having issues, so I'm on my phone right now.
No problem.
I don't have the PDF in front of me, but there was a section, and I think it's in this portion where it says where it's not feasible to replace the trees, replace them with shrubs. Is there something we can also put in, you know, if it's a homeowner and they don't have room where they might not be able to afford to put money in the fund, could they replace with like bird houses or some other features like brush piles or something for what to like support wildlife? Something other
Well, we
than
let
just
them do the markers. I'm afraid if we suggest people replace trees with birdhouses, that we're gonna be in big trouble.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that.
Okay.
But we do encourage, like when they have to do markers at the 25-foot buffer zone or something, to that they could use birdhouses for those markers if desired. But that it's a good thought process, so we should keep that in mind as what. I mean, we haven't. I can really only picture one that really struggled with getting all of the trees in that we were requiring.
Yeah.
So
I did also talk to Olivia about, you know, we get arborist reports, you know, about the trees. They don't necessarily really say they're hazardous most of the time anymore. But, you know, if they have an arborist, they have concerns about trees and the commission says, no, you can't take them down. And then something happens. You know, there's some kind of liability to that.
yeah, we're not able to take that on to tell somebody they can't take down their, you know, 50-foot tall tree and then it lands on their house during the windstorm and they blame us. So that's definitely something that we always kind of have to keep in mind at the, you know, the back of our mind. So,
We can ask them to provide a report from our.
right, they have to provide a report from an arborist
They
saying. that
do,
a
but the
tree is-
arborists don't say hazardous anymore.
They don't say hazardous.
Because they
say
don't want to be liable.
Right.
until-
Yep,
They want to put it on on us, but
right.
I mean, almost always it's these pines, you know, Needham and the pines. And the thing about pines is that they are, they can be weak wooded when they get so tall and spindly, and also they grow, they grow in these giant groupings because they all grew up at the same time. It used to be farm, and then it wasn't, and then all the little pines grew up and they're almost all the same age, and there's nothing on the ground. It's a pretty sterile, even though they're beautiful trees, and the owls can live in them and nest in them. On the ground plane, it's a very sterile biome. It's not, it's so that, you say, oh, you're planting these little deciduous trees to replace these giant pines. But in fact, if you look, 100 years hence or 50 years hence, if they're maintained and they live and they survive, it's a more varied environment than just pine of all the same age. So, I think that a tree is a tree, but it's also part of the grouping of trees, part of the, the age of the tree and of the grouping. It's not, everything isn't equal. And just because a tree is small when you're planting it doesn't mean it's not valuable, because it's different species. And do you know what I'm saying? Is that we're not putting back 50 pines. We're putting back shad and oak and maple, and you know what I mean? So, I would feel good about that part of our mission when we
With
have
saying
replacements.
that, can we say something about having diversity? Because like the thing that drives me
Yeah.
crazy is when people say, oh, I'm gonna plant 25 arborvitae. I'm like, really? That's your system? So maybe, I don't know that if we say it or not in here, but it would be great if we could add something about that. It should be a diverse community. I don't even know what the word is.
Yeah,
Diverse
That's right.
population.
That's right. That's correct. And
Diverse
that's
species.
appropriate. It's appropriate for the conditions and the soil and the orientation, and if it's a north slope or a south, you know what I mean? That these are all conditions that help, that inform what should be planted there. It isn't just that they're a wetland plant or can have wet feet or whatever.
Right.
However, most of the wetland plants do look good planted together. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? A shad looks nice next to a red maple. They look good together. There's a natural reason for that, because they actually have similar conditions and they grow together. So, they look good together. There's an aesthetic thing that just naturally happens. But we do have this issue with the pines of Needham. This is our biggest issue, was these giant pines. And it will continue to crop up and up and up and up forever.
They get taller and taller.
Yeah. There's a reason why there were pines in Needham, because there's a lot of ledge and dry soil, and it's not all, there's not that much clay. And the pines and the oaks like that. And there was fire, and they come up in an open field. That's one reason. There was so much farm here. But in 100 years, there probably won't be that many pines. I don't know.
Sue, you have something to add?
Yep, four little things. One is, yes, I agree that we should put in something about the native diversity. But number two, I think if the fund's not there, I think we should take that paragraph out, and the trees go in the buffer zone or shrubs.
Okay.
The native diversity goes in the buffer.
Okay.
But two other little things. One is at the top paragraph. I think people forget this, or some people don't even know this, is that the trees are our oxygen suppliers and our carbon holders. And I think that's a huge reason for it to be added to, for the significance of the tree. And the other little thing is, I think in that guideline, when I was reading it, instead of, I think there's a DOA, which I think is supposed to be an RDA for request for determination of applicability. I think it was put in as DOA.
In this guideline?
Yeah, in the final copy.
It's request for determination of applicability and notice of intent.
Yeah, and
RDA.
it keeps saying DOA instead of RDA.
Say that later.
DOA, dead on arrival? Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
Well,
see
that's the
DOA anywhere.
determination of applicability is what you get when you file
Oh,
an
oh,
RDA.
okay, DOA, okay.
But
Oh,
It's an
okay,
RDA, it's an RD, okay.
okay. I thought it should be RDA. Okay. But I think also in the top paragraph, when it's explaining the importance of trees, nothing's mentioned about, to remind people that, there are oxygen suppliers and our carbon holders.
you wanna add a sentence in that? And
I-
and just,
Whatever anyone else thinks, but it's not mentioned in there, but that's a huge part of our trees.
Well,
yeah, definitely. That is definitely,
almost all the oxygen, I think, was created in the Precambrian area with algae, wasn't it? I'm just. Trees
the
are
ocean-
great, but I'm just. I think it was a long time ago when most of our oxygen was made.
yeah, wow.
We got the reservoir for that now.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but can we move off of this? I will try to put some edits together and maybe others will also put some edits together and we can start combining. I know Dave already did. But now is Dave's redlined version in that? It's in that folder because I didn't have it when I was starting to look through things. So I wanted to be able to see what some of his comments as well.
We have a link to that folder, or we just go into the site?
Clay sent a Dropbox. It was in this week's folder of stuff.
Oh, in this week's, okay, yeah, okay.
So it's all in there.
In the packet
Okay.
material Dropbox, but I will create a dedicated tree Dropbox folder and so that it can.
Yeah, that would be helpful. And if anybody finds things that they want, just send them to Clay and he will upload them into that folder and then we'll have a good bunch of stuff. Would be really helpful. Yeah, okay. So if we can move on, do we have other business because we have to do an order of conditions tonight?
No,
Oh, we don't.
no. You mean for the field?
Yeah,
No, we closed it, but we're not issuing. We're waiting for a few things from them and I have
okay,
to
so
draft
we'll
it.
wait for a couple of weeks. Okay, great.
Yep.
So then is there anything else that we need to discuss?
I don't think so.
What about the order of conditions?
That's what we just said. We don't have to do that this week. We're gonna do it in 2 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't draft it.
Okay.
I kind of needed to see their presentation to figure out what I needed to put in it.
Okay.
So,
All right, so if we are all set, if nobody else, anybody in the audience, so we're all good with the rest of it.
I had a quick question about not being on
Going
Zoom
live?
anymore,
Going out in
Mhm.
person?
going live. When is that going to happen again?
April.
Beginning of April?
And
and
we're gonna
we,
shift our time to 7:30 instead of 7 o'clock.
Okay. And is that definite or are we voting on it or?
We don't have a choice.
Okay. Thank
so
you.
unless the
I thought we
government
did.
extends it again, then we have to be prepared to go to hybrid. After March
Oh, there's a
31st.
chance that the governor
They
could.
they could extend it. They already did that, what, twice?
Right, I know. I thought
So-
they were kind of coming to the end of that. Um,
That's the only
yeah.
that happened to
Yeah,
stop.
so I guess if the governor extends it, are we all in favor of staying remote?
No.
Paulina, you wanna throw in your vote on that?
I kind of like remote. I kind of like it because I like that the people who are presenting can put on their screens their presentations and their plans, and I can see it more clearly than trying to squint my eyes from across the table. But
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of wondering how we're gonna be able to do that. I'm like, if I have my laptop in front of me when they post it, but I'm on mute, can I do that? Because I agree. I have very bad eyesight, so I
There
like.
had been talk of getting each commission member and the various commissions their own laptops or,
iPads or something.
yeah. I don't know
Oh.
where that's at, but
I've been participating in some hybrid meetings, and most people bring a computer or a tablet, and there's a screen that is also visible to the remote people. People that don't have good vision usually will either log in or have the materials on their laptop and look at it while they're sitting down at the table. So, people make their own accommodations, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might be bringing my laptop.
mm.
'Cause
So
I
read
like-
that guidance document. You can only be remote 25% of the time. Janet has to approve it. Janet, you always have to be in person. Or whoever's chairing has to be in person. The majority
So-
have to be in person.
So, but I don't have to share it all the time. Like, if I can't be there, somebody else can share it. and they
Right,
can do it.
whoever's chairing has to be in person. And the majority have to be in person. So anyways,
we
read that.
We have a meeting on the 30th or something like that. Is March 30th one of our hearings? No. Okay. It was like, I already have to miss that one.
Oh, okay, no,
No, we're on the 23rd.
yeah,
Okay, let me check my email service. Okay,
okay,
so if we're all good, I'll take a motion to adjourn or whatever it is we're supposed to do, so I can go shovel my driveway.
go ahead.
I move we
motion.
adjourn.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye, aye, aye.
Aye,
Thanks,
bye,
everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
everybody.
Night.
Bye.
bye.